Hello, Your Honor.
State your name.
Mr. Greenman.
Can you tell me your name?
Daleroy Greenman.
First up, we're in the Orange County Courthouse in Orlando, Florida, where Daleroy Greenman is in a bond hearing for theft charges. He's accused of stealing a pack of cigarettes, a Bic lighter, and a Gatorade from a 7-Eleven. According to police reports, Greenman walked into the store, placed the items on the counter, then decided to walk out without paying. He faces misdemeanor charges of petty theft. The hearing begins rather cordially.
Good afternoon, sir. Can you tell me your name, please?
Hello, Your Honor.
State your name.
Mr. Greenman.
Can you tell me your name?
Daleroy Greenman.
But Greenman, whose bond is set at $250, listens closely when Judge Carly Wish asks the state if they have a better offer that might get him out of any jail time.
You were arrested for petty theft. Did you find probable cause? Miss Kenny Swanson, did you have an offer?
I did not, Your Honor.
No offer? Is that due to the out-of-state criminal history?
Yes, Your Honor.
Prior to today's hearing, Greenman was charged with tampering with evidence in another case, which potentially elevates his current misdemeanor charge. And Judge Wish is about to break the news.
So, Mr. Greenman, you have prior history out of state, and so the state may enhance this offense to a felony based on your prior. So I can't do anything with your case today. I am going to appoint the public defender for you.
That's horse. You do whatever the you want.
Excuse me?
My name is Mr. Greenman. I'm the federal witness of the United States federal government. I demand some respect, you. Let's get a jam round along y'all did and figure out what you're
All right,
doing.
he can be removed once y'all get him out.
Now.
Greenman erupts after the judge tells him that the state may raise his charges from a misdemeanor to a felony.
You're not.
That's horse. You do whatever the you want.
Excuse me?
My name is Mr.
Two officials on hand move in swiftly to restrain Greenman. But before they grab his wrists, he rips off his mask and begins shouting that he's a federal witness.
Mr. Greenman, I'm the federal witness of the United States federal government. I demand some respect, you.
Greenman's hauled out of the courtroom and back into custody. Then Judge Wish, seemingly unfazed by the outburst, just carries on with the business of the day without missing a beat.
All right, then. No contact with any victims or witnesses in the case. And I'm going to set his bond at $1,000.
A few moments later, the two officials return to sanitize the podium. Daleroy Greenman's bond was increased from $250 to $1,000. According to court documents, he was released on reconnaissance a week later, which means he signed a document promising that he'd appear at his next court date. Shocker, Greenman failed to show up at that pretrial hearing, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. For our next story, we go to a bond hearing taking place via Zoom in Florida's Broward County. Like so many workplaces affected by COVID-19, the parties are forced to communicate virtually.
Mr. Mitchell, good morning. Are you able to hear me all right?
Today, the defendant is Henry Mitchell. He's charged with grand theft. Mitchell allegedly stole over $4,000 from a local restaurant. He's hoping to be released on bond of $1,000. The judge is Corey Amanda Cawthon. There's Mitchell up in the top corner. And we've got attorney Eric Linder, who represents the state, and assistant public defender Dale Miller.
All right, Mr. Mitchell, you're before the court this morning on one charge of grand theft. I do find probable cause, and I will first hear from the attorneys with their recommendations. We'll start with Mr. Linder.
Judge, I'm recommending a $5,000 bond and no return. While I see no priors, I do believe this is obviously not your run-of-the-mill grand theft.
Oh, you, Linder. Who cares what you have?
Mr. Miller, excuse me, but your microphone is on, and if we have one more outburst like that, we're going to be having a very serious discussion with your supervisor. I would expect that you would apologize to Mr. Linder right now.
As Linder recommends a $5,000 fine, Miller turns his camera off, but not his microphone, and expresses his true feelings.
This is obviously not your run-of-the-mill grand theft.
Oh, you, Linder. Who cares what you got?
Miller's language gets some stunned reactions, specifically from the family of the defendant and from Linder himself.
Mr. Miller, excuse me, but your microphone is on. I would expect that you would apologize to Mr. Linder right now.
After a brief pause, Miller offers an apology. Sort of.
Turn the
I
microphone.
apologize that my microphone was on, Judge.
You know, he should be sanctioned.
We'll be having a discussion with Mr. Goldberg after the session today. Mr. Linder, let's continue with Mr. Mitchell's case.
Your Honor, as I was saying, this is not your run-of-the-mill grand theft. The strength of the evidence against Mr. Mitchell is abundantly strong, including but not limited to his confession.
Linder still seems agitated by the attorney's outburst, but forges ahead.
Your Honor, he plotted with his co-arrestee well in advance to not only steal over $4,000 from this business, but to set it up to make it look like there was an armed robbery. Your Honor, I would also note, by his own admission, he stole over $2,000 in cash from the safe from the business, and the cash has not been recovered. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Finally, the judge is ready to make her decision.
In Mr. Mitchell's case, the monetary bond is going to be set at $3,000 and there will be an order of no return. Mr. Mitchell, that simply means you're not to go to that location for any reason. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you and good luck to you as well.
Next, we're in Chelsea, Massachusetts for an arraignment hearing. The defendant in the holding cell is 46-year-old Peter DeConnick. He's been charged with first-degree murder for allegedly stabbing his friend Ronald Russo to death. Investigators say the friends were partying inside this trailer home when a verbal argument escalated into a violent knife fight. Police found Russo on the floor clutching a knife, while a bloodied DeConnick was arrested at a nearby train station. Now at the podium, the prosecutor shares a grisly detail about the murder.
Further investigation, the autopsy report revealed that Mr. Russo did suffer 69 knife wounds to his body.
The mention of the number of stab wounds appears to enrage the victim's brother, who charges towards the defendant.
Did suffer 69 knife wounds to his body.
It takes 1, 2, 3, 4 deputies to remove Thomas Russo from the courtroom. Russo's arrested following the outburst and is charged with disturbing the courtroom and resisting arrest. He's later released on a personal reconnaissance bond after telling the judge that he needed to make funeral arrangements for his slain brother. As for the defendant, Peter DeConnick, he's later found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Next, we head to Sanford, Florida, where closing arguments are underway in the trial of Antonio Rosales. Rosales is accused of dragging a 10-year-old girl off the street and into a wooded area, where he reportedly assaulted and raped her. The defendant is described as a drifter with a violent past. Assistant State Attorney Anna Valentini is delivering her closing argument when Rosales, through a translator, vehemently objects. Seemingly insulted by being labeled a child molester, Rosales grabs a keyboard and smashes the computer monitor on the defense table. Two officers attempt to restrain him, slamming him to the floor.
Please take the jury as a police officer. I need, the front door will be open. I need, definitely take your badge to go in.
Meanwhile, Judge Deborah Nelson seems as though she's struggling to open a door,
I can't open that door.
so she calls for some help.
I need the deputy.
But Rosales is not done fighting. Finally, with the help of additional officers, Rosales is cuffed and then carried out of the courtroom.
Everybody calm down. We'll take it to the recess. Get everything in order.
And Judge Nelson suspends the trial for the evening. The next day, the jury finds Rosales guilty of kidnapping, attempted murder, and sexual battery. He receives 3 life sentences. Next, we're in Las Vegas, Nevada, for a bond revocation hearing for a defendant accused of violating his parole. A year earlier, 35-year-old Michael Mcdonald was released on bond while he awaited trial for charges including burglary, forgery, and perjury. The criminal charges stem from a long and contentious divorce and custody case that ended with his ex-wife being granted a no-contact order to keep Mcdonald away from her and their 2 children. Now, as he awaits trial on criminal charges, the state argues he violated his parole when he violated that no-contact order.
One of his release conditions was to have no contact with the individual, his ex-wife. Approximately a month ago in June, he then mailed a number of items to his wife's address.
The items mentioned were actually gifts addressed to his children. McDonald's lawyer claims his client didn't know sending the items violated the no-contact order and argues he should be allowed to remain out on bond until his upcoming trial.
He sent 2 gifts, that's it. No nasty notes with them. Mr. McDonald is not violent nor a threat to the community. He has had no allegations of violence.
The defense is presenting McDonald's actions as an innocent mistake. But Judge Kathy Hardcastle knows the history of the case and isn't buying it.
I would note that back in the family court, he constantly violated orders. He would always insist that the order said something else.
The judge also cites McDonald's history of unstable behavior during his divorce that ultimately led to the no-contact order being granted.
I was the one who found that he was a potential danger to his children because he lied to the court about surrendering his weapons after he'd been ordered to surrender his weapons, and that because of his bizarre behavior, putting a tracking device on his wife's vehicle. And so I'm seeing the same type of conduct, and it's an obsession. It's a escalating course. I'm not sure that he is capable of controlling himself because he wasn't before. So based upon that, I am granting the motion.
Moments after the judge makes her decision that McDonald did indeed violate the conditions of his parole, 2 court marshals approach McDonald with handcuffs.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
It's unclear what McDonald is trying to say to the judge as he pulls his arms away. What is clear is that McDonald is not ready to cooperate.
Mike, calm down.
Behind your back.
Mike, calm down. Just relax. Breath. Mike, breath.
I got nothing about this. Don't see my kids. Come on. I've done nothing.
Mike, calm down. You take a deep breath.
Guys, come on. Everyone's going to be adult to miss my kids. Come on. Assistance in 15 charges. 15 charges. Stop. Come on. Please, I don't want to. You got it? Please. Let's just hold.
As you can hear, McDonald's attorney calmly tries to get him to settle down.
How many taser? Mike, stop fighting with them. You can't fight. They're helping with cuffs on you. Don't fight with them.
I'm gonna tase you.
But as he continues to resist, even with the threat of being tased, his lawyers had enough.
Mike, put the handcuffs on, or I'll put them on myself.
Wait, come on.
I'm on your side, Mike, but you're out of line.
As additional officers come to restrain McDonald, he continues to plead his case.
I just want to see my kids now getting prosecuted as an enemy of the state. I just want. I've done nothing.
Michael McDonald was found guilty of multiple counts of burglary, forgery, and perjury in relation to his divorce case and was sentenced to 24 to 68 months in Nevada State Prison with credit for 215 days served. And for refusing to be handcuffed during the hearing, McDonald picked up an additional charge of resisting an officer. Thanks for being a fan of Court Cam. Subscribe to A&E to never miss a new video and catch full episodes on aetv.com.